this is a great opportunity for me. I'm gonna hang around with you for a little while tonight, and hopefully a lot of what I talk about today, some of the strategies, concepts, and ideas, you can use them now and probably for the rest of your life. The book that Mark was referring to, Tapping the Iceberg, it's all about how do you tap into that huge potential below the surface. An iceberg, about 90% of an iceberg is below the surface. Actually, if you look it up on the internet, it's about 87.3%, but we'll round it off at 90%. But what a great metaphor for so many things, and especially what we're talking about tonight, because how do you tap into that huge potential below the surface? Now, my philosophy in the book is about getting straight A's in life. It's about attitude, aptitude, and action. And when you look at it, it's not just your attitude, and it's not just aptitude, and it's not just action that makes the difference. It's the combination of the three. When you get all three working in sync, when you're working on all three, you can open, success and abundance in anything you do, especially on the networking side. So we're going to really get into that and figure out, how do we do this? How do we connect? How do we make a difference for people? So that's going to be really the underlining theme tonight. I hope everybody brought business cards too, because as I always say, this is your DNA. Okay, this is your currency in business. Don't leave home without them. Critical to have these all the time, and just to continuously use them on an ongoing basis. Now, a lot of you may have heard of a book called Fish, or heard of the whole idea of fish. There's a market down in Seattle. It's called Pike's Market. Anybody ever been to Pike's Market? Pretty cool place to go, right? And a lot of people, I don't know if most of you haven't been there, when you actually go down to this market at any time during the day, or especially at lunchtime, there's tons of people hanging around this market. It's kind of weird because I don't know about you, but I generally don't go down to fish markets to hang out to get the mojo flowing and get excited about life. Most people don't. But yet this fish market's always buzzing. There's lots of people hanging out there. And you can kind of see why. There's another company down in Seattle too, fairly famous company, that's built its reputation on engaging their clients, engaging their customers, creating a great customer experience. A lot of us have probably been there today. We probably stopped by and we've spent $3, $4, $5 for a cup of coffee. What company are we talking about? Starbucks, right? Starbucks. They create a great experience. When you go down to Pike's Market, to this particular fish market, they create an incredible experience. So they engage their customers. Pretty novel concept, pretty novel idea, right? So customers come in, they make sure they're having a good time. If I'm from Toronto or if I'm from Montreal and I order some cod, all of a sudden they're juggling cod. They're throwing it around. They're making sure the customers are engaged. And here's what they've decided to do. Let me ask everybody in this room too is, who chooses your attitude? Who chooses your attitude? Your neighbor? The person who just cut you off in traffic? Your family? Who chooses your attitude? You do, right? You do. And that's the great metaphor about the iceberg too. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it. Because about 10% of life is what happens to you, about 90% is how you react to it. Stuff happens to everybody. So how do you react to it? You've got to choose your attitude every day. With Pike's Market, they've decided to choose their attitude. And guess what they've decided to do too? They're passionate about what they do. They love what they do. And when you're passionate and you love what you do, genuine enthusiasm comes in. And when it's genuine enthusiasm, regardless of what you choose in life or whatever you're doing, that's contagious. And when it's contagious, that's how you bring people in every single time. So you've got to find your passion. You've got to find what you really love to do in life and drive from there. Because people know. People know when it's genuine, when you're coming across what you really love to do, and then it's contagious. Pretty powerful. You've got to find your fish market. You've got to decide how you want to handle yourself and go forward. The Batman in this picture right here, this Batman right here, that's me. Okay, now let me preface this a little bit. It was Halloween that day. Okay? It was Halloween. I don't put on the Batman costume all the time. It's usually, and this is my daughter's now fourth year at Queens, but this is when she was a lot younger. So I used to love to rent this Batman costume. Cool Batman costume, full garb, 7-foot wingspan, big muscular vest. It had the utility belt and everything else, great mask, kind of a pretty cool outfit. So a few years later, at another Halloween, what I decided to do is I decided I'd get the Batman costume and I'd drive my kids to school. Now, they weren't in high school, okay? They were in grade 2 and 4. So I decided to get in, and that particular day, my daughter, she was dressed up as a fairy princess. My son was a Ninja Turtle. At the time, too, I had a black BMW, so I had a black Batmobile. So I had the Batmobile, I had the full garb on, so I had the whole thing going on. So we got into the car, put the kids into the car, I drove them up to the school. So when I got to the school, I figured, you know what, I'll just go into the school, I'll drop my kids off, and this should happen pretty quickly. Well, I was wrong, because Batman was in the school, so they toured me around the school for the next hour and a half. I went into all the different classrooms. So I hung out in the school for a little while. So when I finally got out to my car, I had to make up a little bit of time. And at the time I was living in the Lawrence Park area in Toronto, and I was working in Markham, so I had to get on the highways to get to work. So I got on the highways and I had to make up a little bit of time. So I got on the highway and I was speeding pretty excessively. I got pulled over by the OPP. So I'm still full garb on. So I'm sitting there in my car, OPP pulls me over, I'm sitting there, the officer gets out of his car, he's starting to walk up towards my car. I'm checking the rear view mirror, I'm checking the side view mirror, I'm looking for a reaction from the officers as he's coming up to the car. As he gets pretty close to the car, I kind of notice that he notices what I'm wearing and see a little bit of a smile, a little bit of a snicker on his face. So I'm thinking, the wheels are going off in my head thinking, okay, maybe I got him, maybe this is good, maybe this is good. So he gets up to the car, I pop my window down, he looks at it and he goes, Batman, where are you going? And I looked at him and I said, Gotham City. I mean, that made sense to me. I thought that was pretty funny. He didn't. He didn't think it was quite as funny as I did. So we talked for a little while, and he said, I said, I'd just like to tell you my story. And he said, yeah, this should be pretty good. This will be a good one. So we started to talk, and it turned out that he had 2 young kids too, and I told him the whole story about taking my kids to school and so forth. So he heard about that, and he said, you know what, I've got 2 young kids too. So after a while, after we talked for a little while, he said, you know what, that's kind of cool. I'm going to let you go. So all of a sudden he said, before you go though, I want you to take off the mask. And I looked at him and I said, sorry, I can't reveal my true identity. Now, again, I thought that was pretty funny. He didn't. And so he let me go. I drove up to work that day, and I pulled into the parking lot of where I was working. Where I was working, it was a pretty big company. There were about 700 employees there. I didn't park too close to the building. I decided to keep the full garb on and go in. To this day, I don't know why security didn't stop me, but they didn't. I guess it was Halloween, and Batman can walk into any building he wants on Halloween. So I walked in, and I walked around the office for a while, and I messed with people, because it was a fun thing to do. So after that, on that evening, I went out with my kids trick-or-treating, still had the full Batman gear on. Hit of the neighborhood was pretty cool. At the end of the night, I got up on the top of our house, put the full wingspan out. It was actually a pretty nice night, full moon. It was kind of a lot of fun. Now, here's why I tell the story. I tell the story for a few reasons. First of all, it's fun. It's fun. And here's the thing about life. Don't take yourself too seriously, because nobody else is. Take what you do seriously. Don't take yourself too seriously. Have some fun. Be the Batman. Be the Batwoman occasionally. Now, one of my favorite books, I like to give away books. And I think when you meet with people, when you network with people, first of all, qualify. If they like to read, send them a book. If they don't like to read, don't send them a book. And lots of people will do that. So qualify a little bit. I always like to find out what people are doing. So if somebody has a young family, I'm not necessarily going to send them Jim Collins, Good to Great or something like that. I'm going to send them this book right here, Oh, the Places You Go by Dr. Seuss. This book is the #1 book given to graduating university and college students in the U.S. #1. Why? It's a great book on life. I'm going to read a little bit of the book today. I'm not going to read the whole book, but I'm going to read a few pages to you because it's pretty. How many people have read this book before? That's pretty good. That's pretty cool. So it starts off, congratulations, today's your day. You're off to great places, you're off and away. You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes, you can steer yourself any direction you choose. Seuss gets it. He gets it. It's all about choice. It really is. He ends the book off and he says, yes, you will succeed, yes, you will indeed. 98.75% guaranteed. That's kind of cool. It's not 100%, but you can get pretty close. Great book. He talks about fear, rejection, failure, indispensable prerequisites for success. Bring it on. I mean, this is stuff, and it's fun. That is a great book to give to people. I would give it away on a regular basis. It's a lot of fun. You've got to think about that. Be the Batman. Make a difference. Now, you've probably heard about this too. Whenever you're networking, whenever you're meeting with people, another one of my favorite books, and he's written a lot of great books, is called The Present by Spencer Johnson. Spencer Johnson co-authored The 1 Minute Manager with Ken Blanchard. He also wrote the book Who Moved My Cheese. Now, what I love about this book, and it also talks about it in Fish too, is they talk about being present in the present. And here's one of my favorite quotes of all time. The past is history, the future is a mystery, today is a gift. That's why we call it the present. Isn't that cool? Because you know what? You cannot change the past. The past is the past. We learn from it. Now we plan for the future because you can't hit a target you can't see. You've got to have a target. You've got to put yourself out there. You've got to know what you're shooting for. It's not 100%, but you've got to at least have a target. Now the present is the only thing that you can control right now. That's it. So you've got to be present in the present. I like what Woody Allen said. Woody Allen said this. He said, 80% of success is just showing up. You want to play in the game? You have to show up for the game. You can't play from the sidelines. You got to get in there. You got to talk to people. You got to communicate. You got to put yourself out there. Big A in my book. Attitude, aptitude, action. You got to take some action too. Powerful. Great book. Great present to give, kids of all ages. Now let's get into a little bit of the networking side too. You've probably heard of this before. 6 degrees of separation. Anybody in the room tell me what that means? Well, what's the whole concept of 6 degrees of separation? What do we mean by it? Anybody? What's 6 degrees of separation? Yeah.
Two people are connected, or you can connect any two people through 6 connections, or 6 frames, or 6 hands. So if you take anybody in the world, I'm somehow connected to them through a friend of mine, relatives, friends, and I make those 6 connections. We know each other.
Right, through a friend, through a friend, through a friend. So the concept is this. On this little planet called Earth, where there's about 6.5 billion of us, we're all connected to every other person in this planet within 6 degrees, within 6 people. Hollywood had its own version. They called it the Kevin Bacon effect. And I don't know if you actually Google 6 degrees of separation, it tells you all about the Kevin Bacon effect. What Hollywood did is they said, let's take somebody in the entertainment industry, like Kevin, who's done a lot of movies, done a lot of shows, been around a lot of different things, and let's randomly go out to the entertainment industry, to about 1 million people in the entertainment industry, and let's see how many degrees of separation they're all connected into Kevin Bacon. Well, they did this. They went out to just over 900,000 people in the entertainment industry, all connected into Kevin within 3 people, within 3 degrees. Cool, pretty powerful. But it works. And here's what I would say to you, too, is that the latest census in the Golden Horseshoe around Toronto, GTA around Toronto, is there's about 10 million people. Okay, about 10 million people. In this room tonight, we are all connected to those 10 million people within 2 people. Within 2 people. I guarantee that. If I've got 30 people in the room, we can connect into that many people. We got a lot more than 30 people in this room within a few degrees. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? In other words, you can connect to pretty well anybody if you really want it. I always say, a lot of people, I talk about Oprah sometimes, and sometimes people will say, a lot of guys won't admit this, but I love Oprah. I think Oprah's amazing. Why do I love Oprah? Because she's such a giver. She's such a giver. She's had a tough, she's doing okay now, but she's had a pretty tough life for a little while. And she's the first to admit it. But she's amazing. She does incredible things for people. She may be the most powerful person on this planet. Very, very powerful. But she's a giver. She's made a difference by giving to people. And that's really made a huge difference in why she's so well connected. I mean, when you think about it, what is networking? Let's break it down. Let's figure out exactly what does it actually mean. Let's simplify this a little bit. Let me ask a few of you about networking. What is networking? What does it mean to you? Anybody? What's networking? Throw anything at me though. What is networking? What is it? Yeah.
Connecting to people, chatting, like creating small talk, and just kind of getting to know someone.
Yeah.
Very casual.
Yeah. And I love that. Connecting to people. That's awesome. Getting to know them. What else? Anybody else? Networking. What is it? What's networking? Yeah.
I just listened to John Maxwell. Maxwell said networking is business.
Networking is business, John Maxwell? Absolutely. Yeah. So it's connecting in business, and it really is going to make a difference long term in any situation from a business standpoint. Definitely. Yeah. Anybody else?
Growing
Yeah.
support group.
Sorry, growing your support group? Absolutely. Yeah.
If you're connecting with people, you're connecting with people they know.
Yeah, isn't that powerful? So remembering too, networking's like a chain. There's a bunch of links in the chain, so if you're connecting to this person, guess what? You're connecting to other links in the chain too. That's great. Anybody else? Yeah.
Building mutually beneficial relationships.
Gee, I love that. Building mutually beneficial relationships. Here's a great word, mutually beneficial. Mutually. Isn't that powerful? We're going to talk a lot about that tonight. So here's what I want to do. I want to take the word networking. It's not going to go away. It's generic. It's like Xerox or Kleenex. There are a lot of words that we use that are generic, right? So it's a generic term. We're going to keep using it, but just take it, park it over here for a minute, and replace it with the word people. People. See, networking is just simply connecting with people. That's it. That's it. And there's so many different ways of connecting with people. We know that. Whether it's electronically, face-to-face, we'll talk about a lot of different ways. We'll get into, LinkedIn and a few things that are really, really powerful to use as far as networking goes. But it's connecting with people. Let's not make this too complicated, because we do make this complicated. And I'm going to give you right now, I'm going to give you the big nugget. This is the big golden nugget right here. And I like to call it, this is all you really need to know. I like to call it G7. I call it G7 because G8's already taken. So I went with the G7. So G7 is simply this. Give, 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 and give again. That's it. Right there in a nutshell. You see, giving starts the receiving process. Let me repeat that again. Giving starts the receiving process every single time. You want to play the long-term game of life, not just short-term? Giving, giving, giving. When I'm talking about giving here, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the attitude of giving. It's the attitude. I'm not saying giving away books and money and charity. That's all good. But I'm talking about the attitude of giving. And then I'm going to break it down for you a little bit too, is when you meet with somebody else, if you go into that meeting or that situation with a few people or a group, and you go with it into that situation or meeting with the attitude of, what can I do for you? Or a giving attitude, how do you think the meeting's going to go? I know how well it's going to go. It's going to go really well. Because when you go into any situation with the attitude of, what can I do for you? good things happen. Giving starts the receiving process, absolutely. Think about it this way. When you meet with somebody, think about them having an imaginary sign around their neck, and what does that sign say? Make me feel good, make me feel important. Because that's what's important to them. See, sales, and Dean connected with Dean right away. He worked at Xerox, I worked at Xerox. That's a pretty good way to start off the evening. Good to find out what people have done in the past. There's some good common ground right there. Now we both have the little tattoo on the back of our heads, the little digital X or whatever it is. I mean, is yours still there, Dave? Yeah. Yeah. So it is what it is. But connecting with people, looking at it from that perspective. So what's important to them? And in sales too, most people think you got to hone on it. You got to learn the sales process. That's true. But what sales is really all about? The buying process, isn't it? Isn't sales about, because what's important to them? It's always what's important to them. So let's get into a few of the things that are really important. When I'm talking about giving, I'm talking about a whole bunch of different things all around attitude. Here's the first one. I love this one. You're born with 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them proportionately. Use them proportionately. As a matter of fact, double up on the ear quotient and listen 4 times as often as you speak. You want to be effective, communicator, networking, that whole side of it, listen. Ask good questions and listen. I mean, any good negotiator, sales, marketing person will always say, a lot of people think if they're talking, they control the situation. That's not true. That's not true. The person who asks good questions and listens controls every situation. So what are the good questions? Ask and then listen. What a great gift, too. Listening to people. Isn't that a great gift? Here's some other good ones. Compliment people. Compliment. If you go into a meeting and you start that meeting or that interaction with a compliment, how do you think it's going to go? It's going to start well. I'll tell you that right now. It's going to start well. Now here's the thing about a compliment. You got to mean it. If it's not genuine, don't do it. It's got to be genuine. You got to mean it. People got to understand that where it's coming from. So genuine compliments make a huge difference. Compliment people. Lots of gifts. If you think about this, it should be unconditional too. That's pretty powerful. Unconditional. Sharing, collaboration, smiling, laughter. Here's a great one from a networking perspective. Put other people together. Now, I think I'm a bit of a matchmaker. I call it the email dating game. I do it all the time. I put people together all the time. I'll send an email. I'll say something about both people, usually compliment both of them, and put them together. Say the 2 of you should get together to share some of your ideas, your wisdom, whatever it happens to be. Be the matchmaker. Put people together. Now, mutually beneficial. I loved when that came up earlier. It's got to be mutually beneficial. You can help make it mutually beneficial too, because generally you might know both of these people, you should, so put them together. And then watch your network just expand exponentially. It will go right through the roof, right through the sky. Put people together. Connect people as often as you can. And then, you know what? They appreciate it. So there's lots of things you got to think. I mean, charity, time, money, all those things really do make a difference, but most of these are intangibles. Most of these are around attitude. You want to grow your network, you've got to have the attitude of giving. I don't even call it networking anymore. You see, net giving takes the work out of networking. It's about net giving. It's net giving. It's not networking. Don't get me wrong, you still have to work at it, but it's giving. It really is. And we're going to talk a few other things about this too. Pay it forward. Anybody ever heard of pay it forward? Most people in the room. Pay it forward. There seems to be a lot of paying it forward going on these days at Tim Hortons. So people will line up and they're going through the line and they'll pay for the next person behind them. Next person comes up. I've seen it. I understand at some Tim Hortons that they now are having contests to see how many people in a row it can go through. And I think the record's 7 or 8. So somebody pays for the next person. They go, That's kind of cool. And the next person pays for the next person, and it's gone through as many as 7 or 8 people. And the last person gets a pretty big bill. What, 25 bucks? Okay, it's stopping here. But it's kind of an interesting concept. The movie, wonderful movie. Has anybody seen, most of you seen Pay It Forward? It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, go get it. Go rent it, go buy it, go watch it or whatever. Great people in it. Kevin Spacey's in it, Helen Hunt, Haley Joel Osment. And let me just talk a little bit about the movie. So, and the book, and the whole idea is, Haley Joel Osment in the movie, he's in the 7th grade. So he comes in for his first day of school, and his teacher is Kevin Spacey. So when he comes in, Kevin Spacey gives the whole class an assignment for the term. And the assignment is this: I want everybody in this course, everybody in this class, to figure out some way where they can make a difference in the world. How can you make a difference in the world? It's a pretty big project, actually. So he says, there's one thing I want you to do, though. I want everybody to come back and present their whole idea, their project, and what they want to do. But I also want you to think about this, too. I don't want you to just come back with an idea or a concept or a strategy. I want you to also figure out a way on how do you implement it. How do you take some action on it? How do you execute? How do you actually start the ball rolling to make a difference for your project? So Haley Joel Osment comes back after a few days, he presents to the class, and his idea is this. What he wants to do is he wants to do a good deed. He wants to make a difference for 3 people. So he wants to go out, do a good deed, make a difference for 3 people, and he doesn't want them to pay it back to him. He wants each of those people to pay it forward. He wants them to do a good deed, make a difference for 3 more people. And then those people will make a difference for 3 more people, and 3 more people, and all of a sudden, boom, this will go right across the world, and the world will be a better place. Now, conceptually, it's a great idea. In theory, it's a great idea. So he starts the ball rolling. He pays it forward. He makes a difference. He does a good deed for 3 people. Well, he doesn't really see much happening after a few weeks. So he's a little bit frustrated. But unbeknownst to him is it takes on legs of its own. So all of a sudden, some of these people that he helped started paying it forward, doing good deeds for other people. And this phenomenon goes right across California, and all sorts of people are doing great deeds for other people. So a reporter gets a hold of it, like any good investigative reporter, and wants to figure out where the origin is on this. So he traces it all the way back. All of a sudden, he's standing in front of his house. Haley Joel Osment's mother comes out. He's standing there and goes, how could this start? Such a powerful idea, such an amazing concept. How could it start with such a young kid? And then they think about it, and it's so simple, yet it's so powerful. Pay it forward is an attitude. Pay it forward is an attitude. If you have the attitude to pay it forward into any situation that you go into, watch the abundance. Exponentially again. Pay it forward. Just like giving, it's an attitude. Now you're the host of an event or a party. Okay, you're the host. Okay? What do you like when you're the host? What do you like when you're a host or hostess? What do you like? What's your demeanor? How do you come across? How do you handle yourself? What do you like? Gracious. Pretty positive. Pretty excited about it. Pretty pumped up. You take care of people, right? Host or hostess. You make a difference for them. Now you're the guest. You come into an event like tonight. You see some people you know over in the corner. That's your comfort zone. You hang out with them for a while. Maybe that's where you hang out for the whole evening. I wouldn't recommend it, but that's maybe where you hang out for the whole evening. Now, here's my challenge to everybody in this room. And I want you to take this forward tonight. Be the host. Be the host. Host is an attitude. Pay it forward is an attitude. Giving is an attitude. Make a difference. Be the host. Connect with people. Introduce people. Make a difference. Now, I'm not saying take over other people's parties and events. That's not what I'm saying. Look at it from the perspective of make a difference and be the host. When you meet with people, do you generally take some notes? Do you ask if you can take some notes? No? Okay, that's okay. I would. I mean, if I'm meeting with somebody and if I've asked for a meeting, now here's the thing about this is get permission. Life's about getting permission anyways, isn't it? Don't you want to get permission? So 100% of the time when I meet with somebody, if I've asked for a meeting or whatever it happens to be, I'll ask, is it okay if I take some notes? And I haven't ever had anybody said, no, this is secret stuff. People say, sure, take some notes. Now, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to take some notes? So you can remember. That's great. When you think about that is, how many people in here have 100% memory recall or totally photographic memory? Not? You do? Yeah? let's test you on this one. Okay. Okay. What was the officer's name who pulled me over in my car? Okay, got it. So most of us don't, with the exception of a few people, but most of us don't. But absolutely, don't trust your memory. Take some notes. Because here's proper protocol too, is take some notes so when you send them an email to thank them for the time. By the way, when you send an email, proper protocol would be if you meet with somebody, if you've asked for a meeting, send them a thank you email within 24 hours. And a good thing to put in the subject line is this: thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. What's more valuable than a person's time? That's pretty cool. And guess what? Then the first paragraph isn't going to be, hey, can you do something for me? I want this. Could you do this? Whatever that happens to be. The first thing in the paragraph, because you took some notes and you wanted to find out what's important to them, might be something like, hey, how did your son do in that basketball game last night? How did that test go? How's your neighbor? How's that hobby? How's that or whatever? Guess what? You found out some stuff that's important to them. That's what you start with every single time. Because that's a good way to start it. Now, why else do you take notes too? Is you want to get all that information down. And you'll retain it better. So then when you actually go to send them an email, you can actually take down information that's important to them. So do take notes. Do ask permission. Do find out what's important to people. And then put that back to people. Because that's called being genuine. That's called making a difference. You'll probably get this one. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Is it? Is it who you know? Yeah. That's good. I like that. It's what you do with what you know. That's good. We're starting to sound a little like Dr. Seuss, too. That's what I like. A lot of people say, gee, you sound like Dr. Seuss. And that's a compliment to me, by the way. So that's good. That's really good. So it is who you know. There's no doubt about it. But then, what do you know about it? So it's not just who you know. Isn't this more important? It's not just who you know, it's what you know about who you know. Right? Because I know lots of people who know lots of people. That's nice. I know lots of people who know lots of things. That's nice too. But then you've got to take action too, don't you? A big A, action. So it's not just who you know, it's not just what you know, it's what you know about who you know, then it's what you do with what you know about who you know? Right? It's who you know, and then it's what you do with what you know about who you know. So here's who I know. I know a little bit about them, and then I've got to take some action. Make a difference. Take some action. Now, when you meet with people too, I'm not saying that you have to do this every single time, but you should think about this. 3 key things every time you interact with people, networking or whatever it happens to be. 3 key things to take into account every time you have an interaction. Here's what I want you to do. Find out at least 2 things that are important to that person. What's important to them? 2 things. Okay? Second thing you want to find out. What do you have in common? What do you have in common? I mean, that's relationship 101. What do you have in common? what makes a difference to them. So 2 things that are important to them. 1 thing, try this tonight. Try this tonight. Find out what's important to them. Okay? And when you're at a networking event, people will say, well, you know what, I can't sit there taking notes or that sort of thing. That's true, but you can occasionally, if you have their business card, put a few notes on it just so you'll remember rather than trying to remember the next day. That's fine. On the back of the business card, I do it all the time. So just a few notes. If they have a couple of kids or what's important to them, boom, I write it down because then I remember. And then when I send an email to them or whenever I follow up, I can actually feed back to them what's important about them. So find out a couple things that are important to them, what you have in common, and the third thing to do, which this is a tough one. This is not easy, and this is not necessarily something you do right away. But what can you do for them? What is something, based on what you now know about them, what is something that you could do for them over the short term or long term to make an impact or make a difference for them? Now here's the thing that you got to figure out too and think about is this somebody that you want to do something for? Because you can't do it for everybody. So you've got to pick some people and say, you know what, I want to make an impact, I want to make a difference with this person. So you write a few things down, find out what's important. Let me give you an example. You're talking to the person, you find out they love birds. They're into birds, okay? So here's what I might do. I might send them, email to them some articles on birds. Or something to do with, joining the Audubon Society or the Audubon Society or anything to do with birds. That would be pretty subtle. So that's something I could do. Again, it doesn't have to be instantaneous. Remember this about networking too, is things don't necessarily happen right away. It's not about right now. It's about taking some time and figuring it out over time. So it does take time. And it may not be that person who makes a difference. It may be 1 or 2 or 3 people that they know down the chain, down the links of the chain. So what can I do for them? So 3 things to always think about. What's important, what you have in common, what can I do for them? How can I make a difference for them? Networking process. You've heard of this before. Pareto principle, 80-20 rule. How does this work in networking? Like this. Spend 80% of your time on the 20% that will give you 80%. Don't spend 80% of your time on the 80% that only gives you 20%. Powerful. I mean, think about this. If certain people make a big difference, Malcolm Gladwell, The Tipping Point, talks about certain people make a big difference. So if I want my book to do really, really well, do you think if I'm on the Oprah Book Club, it's going to do okay? I think it probably will. Or if all of a sudden it's got a Heather's Pick at Chapters, I think that would make a big, big difference. Certain people have certain influence that can make a big impact. So you got to kind of figure that out. Who are those people? I already talked about this a little bit. Failure, rejection, fear. This is good stuff. This is good stuff. Don't get too used to it, but it's pretty good stuff. So with failure, rejection, fear, when you learn from it, it's just called experience. Because we all get rejected. We all have fear. And we all run into failure from time to time. I love what Thomas Watson said, founder of IBM. He said, you want to double your success rate? Double your failure rate. Mess up. The most successful people I know, in all walks of life, people I've run into, are the biggest failures. They're the biggest failures. They learn, and guess what? Failure, a lot of the time, you gotta learn, it's the process of elimination, too. What doesn't work so I can find out what does work? And I think that Henry Ford got this right, too. Failure is the opportunity to begin again more intelligently. True. Learn. You got to figure out how it doesn't work. People are like bank accounts a little bit, too. How about if you're doing this? Withdrawal, 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 withdrawal. What's that called? Deficit. What you want to be doing more of is deposit, 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 right? People are like bank accounts over the long term. So you've got to make a lot more deposits than you do from that side. How many people in this room are on Facebook? A lot of people. How many people in this room are on LinkedIn? Okay, so roughly the same. So I think Facebook's great. I think LinkedIn is more powerful in the business community. I think they both have their place. And Google, all these things are great for networking. And I'm not going to get into one or the other, and I'm not going to go in one direction right now. But from a business standpoint, from a business acumen, LinkedIn is the best place to be. That's my opinion. First impressions. How long to create a first impression? How long to create a first impression? Sorry? A few seconds? It's pretty quick? Yeah. So, easy to, Malcolm Gladwell wrote another book that sort of gives this away too. It's called Blank. And basically it's the 2-second factor. So that's true. First impressions are pretty well instantaneous. Pretty well instantaneous. So that's the subconscious mind or the unconscious mind. But it takes 3 to 10 seconds for the conscious mind to catch up. So it's about 3 to 10 seconds. So what? It's pretty quick though. First impressions are very, very quick. So when you look at this about first impressions too is, there's 3 areas that we're being judged. Visual, vocal, and content. So let's look at how we think it works from our perspective first. When you're getting ready for something, presentation or one-to-one or whatever it happens to be, where do you spend most of your time in these 3 categories? And I don't want to influence you at all here, but where do you spend most of your time? I don't want to influence you. Where do you spend most of your time? Okay, a visual, right? Okay, good. On content, we spend most of our time. We're not spending as much time from a visual perspective or from a vocal perspective. Now let's spin this around right now and let's look at how you're being judged. Okay, let's look at their perception on how you're coming across. We'll add this up to 100, okay? What do you think content is out of 100? So I've got anywhere from about 7 to 30%, 40%. We're all over the place on this one. So vocal, what do you think vocal is? 20, 30s in there. And what do you think visual is? Pretty high?
Yeah.
Okay. Content, 7%. Visual, about 55%. Exhaustive research done. It's ton of research done. Vocal, about 38%. Now, this is kind of interesting because content is only 7%. But a lot of people get this wrong. They say, gee, it's only 7%. But here's the thing about the 7%. By the way, what are you judging me on today? Mainly visual and vocal. How do I get to the visual and vocal? I got to know my content. Content is only 7%, but guess what? That 7% is the foundation for the other 93%. You can't nail the visual and vocal unless you know your content. You have to know your content. When you know your content, the visual and vocal will just naturally kick into place. Now, if I go up to you, I'm going to walk up here a little bit. Tim Cork, pleased to meet you. Tim Cork, pleased to meet you. Tim Cork, pleased to meet you. I'm not going to do the whole class, okay? Tim Cork, pleased to meet you. So, when you meet with somebody, anytime that you meet with somebody, look them in the eyes. Now, in some cultures, you've got to do your homework. You've got to do your homework too. In some cultures, that's not necessarily the best thing to be doing. Do your homework. But in most situations, in most environments, look them in the eyes, okay? Register the color of their eyes, whether it's blue, brown, green. Red if they had a bad night the night before, whatever it happens to be. Register the color of their eyes. That's good protocol. Okay, so when you meet with somebody, register the color of their eyes. Okay? That's the right protocol. Some other things to think about too when you meet with other people is posture. Never cover your heart. Keep an open posture. Keep a welcoming posture. Very, very powerful way to think about it. Now, before I just go, for a few more minutes and I'm going to finish off, I'm going to send a hat around. We're going to have a draw for a book, okay? So I'm going to pass that around. You guys can stick business cards in there. I'm going to have a draw, okay? So we're going to send it around the room and we're going to have a draw. Now, okay? You guys, Just business cards. We want to keep this rolling. So, other ways. First impressions. First impressions are voicemail, email. Everything you do is a first impression. So make sure you're up on. Think about the first impressions all the time. You're creating a first impression, whether it's vocal, whether you're sending email. Anytime you have communication with somebody, you're creating a first impression. Average human attention span, what do you think it is? 15 minutes. 30 seconds. 30 seconds to 15 minutes, okay. What do you think the average human attention span is? Let me give you a hint here, okay? Sorry, what did you say again?
30 seconds.
And sorry, what did you say? Sorry, I forgot what you said. You said, sorry. Okay, so let me help you out with this one. Advertisers spend billions and billions of dollars on commercials. They've done their homework. Average commercial, how long is the average commercial? 15 to 30 seconds. Average human attention span, 15 to 30 seconds. So what? First impressions are quick. When you're talking to people, when you first meet somebody, and you're still talking to them for 5 minutes, telling them what you do, you're killing them. You're killing them, okay? So you got to articulate it. You got to figure out what's your brand new speech. People call it elevator speech because it's quick and to the point. You got to rehearse it. You got to be good at it. You got to be able to articulate what are you about, what's your product, your service, or whatever it is, pretty quickly. Because the average human attention span isn't that long. People lose it pretty quickly. Now, eagles. What do I consider eagles to be? Eagles are the people of wisdom, the people who have done it before. They've been there. They make a difference. Those are the eagles. And what I would say to everybody in this room is, find the eagles out there. Ask the eagles. Spend time with the eagles, the people who have soared and been there before. Find out how they've done it. How have you done it? How did you make a difference? What did you do to get to this place? Go and find those people. Ask them. Get them to share their wisdom with you. And if they won't, they're not real eagles. Because eagles get the concept of giving. Eagles know to make a difference, you got to give. So go find the eagles. Eagles do make a difference. Here's the thing about eagles too is, eagles, if they're being pestered by a bunch of crows, you know what they do? They just fly higher. They fly higher in real life. The crows can't go there. When a storm's coming at an eagle goes straight at it, catches the current and rises above. Find the eagles. If you want to be an eagle, you got to hang with eagles. So spend the time with them. Let me just finish with this. 4 questions to ponder. The first question to think, what do children always ask? Why? And it's a good question. Why pay it forward? Why give? Why listen? Why collaborate with people? Why share? Why make a difference? Good question. Best answer I can think in second question to ponder is, answering to why is why not? Why wouldn't you collaborate? Why wouldn't you share? Why wouldn't you listen? Why wouldn't you pay it forward? Why wouldn't you be the host? Why wouldn't you give? Giving starts the receiving process. Third question to ponder and think about. Why not you? Why not you? Think of the difference you can make. Fourth question to ponder. Big A in the book too. Anything that you do. Taking action. You got to take action. Why not now? Why not now? What's holding you back? I can't think of anything that's really holding you back. Make a difference now. Impact it now. I love this. Life is an echo. What you send out comes back. What you send out comes back. Pretty powerful. Think about the network in here right now. This network in here right now can go anywhere. Within 2 people, anywhere in the GTA. This is a powerful, powerful network. Take advantage of it tonight. Spend some time. Find out what's important to people. Find out what you have in common. Stay in touch with people. Make a difference. It really is the attitude. The difference is to really unleash the power. The difference is it's not about networking. It's about net giving. You want to take the work out of it. It's about the attitude of what can I do for you? How can I make an impact? Give. Pay it forward. Make a difference. find out what's important to them. And you watch abundance, anything that you want to do in life, it will all come your way. Because that's what starts the receiving process. Make sense? Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to get Mark to do a little draw here. So we're going to pick out a card.
I bent my own, so I know where.
So he can't choose that. Door number 3. Okay. So,
Angelina.
Evangelina. Where's Evangelina? Hey, Evangelina. There you go. I'm going to hang out here for a little while. Everything that I talked about is in my book, and as part of being part of this group, you can get my book tonight for half price. It's $10 each. I'll sign them and personally autograph. It's an easy book to read. It's bite-sized pieces, by the way. This is not a tough, complicated read. It's easy to get to. There's a lot about networking. There's a lot about goals, vision, mission, a lot of other things, but primarily it's straight A's: attitude, aptitude, and action. When you're firing on all 3 of those, can't go wrong. Can't go wrong. That makes the difference. That's the combination. That will unlock any vault, anything that you want to do in life. You want abundance. Okay? Thank you. And I'm going to hang around, and I'll be coming down with everybody down below too. We'll have books there too. But again, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.